Hi, I'm Carrie Jennings, and I'm going to show you how to make yogurt here today. This one's very simple. We're going to start out just with a quart of milk. You can use whole milk or skim milk. Either one works for making yogurt. I like to use the whole milk because the cream content in it gives a very rich and creamy yogurt as a finished product. So I poured this milk directly in my pot, and I like to use stainless steel pots. This one has a thick bottom, which is very good for yogurt making, since the first step we're going to do is to heat it up to 195 degrees, which is pretty warm. So I'll put it on the stove, and I'll heat it, and we'll need to stir it fairly often during that process. Since it's going up to 195 degrees, it's going to scorch pretty easily on the bottom. So I'll put one of these dairy thermometers in here. And stir it occasionally as it's heating up here. All right, so we've gotten up to 195 degrees, and then we'll turn off the heat and cool it down before we go on to the next step. Our next step is to add the live and active culture into it, which is actually a yogurt culture. So what I do is fill a bowl or my sink, if I'm not going to be using it a lot in the kitchen, with just cool water. This is just cool out of the tap, and that cools it off very quickly. So I don't have to wait a long time to go all the way down to 120 degrees. So it's now cooled to 120 degrees. So I'll take away my pot of water, and I'll go ahead and mix in my packet of the culture. This is actually a freeze-dried yogurt culture. So I'll just sprinkle this packet into this 1 quart of milk and whisk it in. Whisk it in real well so it starts rehydrating there in the liquid milk. And then these cultures can start getting very active, and what they'll do inside this liquid milk is work over the next 4 to 6 hours at making this very thick. We'll have the texture of yogurt by the time we're done. And so I'll whisk it in real well and then pour it into a jar and leave it undisturbed so that those cultures can actually work on thickening this whole quart of milk. So this batch I made with our powdered culture from the kit, but you've also got instructions in there for using your own homemade yogurt, which is going to be the same steps we've just followed, except instead of sprinkling in your packet of powder, you'll use 2 tablespoons of yogurt that you've made. As long as it's within 7 to 10 days of being made, it will be fresh and live and active, and those cultures will do the exact same thing that this packet is doing right now. So it's very nice. This yogurt can be made once from the packet, and then you can continue it on so that you keep your own fresh yogurt starter all the time. So I'll pour this into just a clean quart jar. So I can wrap it up, and it will stay undisturbed for the next 4 to 6 hours. Like I said, for those cultures to work on thickening this whole jar of milk. You can see it's very liquid right now, but by the time we come back in 4 hours, it'll be very thick. So I'm just going to write on here what it is, and then I'll wrap it up in some kitchen towels, and then a lot of times I'll set it in just a cooler or something to just maintain the temperature that it's at right now. So I'll wrap it up, set it inside here, and this is another tip that's helpful, especially if your house is cool. I fill another jar with hot water, just as hot as it comes from the tap. So that's usually pretty close to the 120 degrees that your milk is at right now. And I'll set it right next to this wrapped jar and put it in the cooler, and then I'll zip this up and just set it in a corner of your kitchen that's not going to get disturbed during the whole 4 hours. So after 4 hours, I'll just come back and gently tip the jar, and you can see it kind of peel away from the side a little bit. And I don't want to jostle it too much because that will make all the thickening that it's done kind of loosen and it will go back to being more liquid. So I don't want to jostle it, just tip it gently. And I can see a little bit just peeling away from the surface. That means what's inside the jar has gotten thick. So this is nice. Now, if you come in 4 hours and it hasn't thickened properly, then just wrap it up again. Maybe refill the jar of hot water with a fresh batch of hot water so that it warms up just a little bit more. And close it up again, leave it undisturbed, and come back in another hour. And that usually gives it enough time to thicken. So at that point, you'll just set the jar in the refrigerator to chill fully before you open it.